Okay, so we're back now, picking it up again with the loyalty or rewards programs. Again, I love my loyalties programs, but we want to take a look, and you may want to make some notes here on the following comments, right? Because they could relate to your final paper, which has to do with CCPA, the California Privacy Act, right? Because I frankly love my free cups of coffee, right? Or my 10% off coupons that pop up because I'm a frequent shopper. It's like a prize, right? That may be at risk of disappearing due to CCPA. As businesses right now are working to evaluate whether they can keep their loyalty programs in place. So, CCPA alters the basis of loyalty programs that customers trade this valuable data about themselves in return for discounts or other comforts. So it began in this year, 2020. And so now Californians are able to request that their consumer data be deleted. And they'll be able to stop companies from selling information to third parties. All good stuff, right? And companies in most cases won't be able to offer different prices or discounts to customers who opt out of letting their loyalty data be sold. And the firms then must be able to quantify the value of their programs' contributions, right, to their own sake. So partly, one of the issues with CCPA, it was written so fast, it took them only about a week, that it's vague, right? And so we continue to get updates on the guidance. We'll see how that develops in California, right? The CCPA's financial incentives and anti-discrimination provisions are really some of the most complicated pieces of it. I'm told by lawyers, and they tend to then to be confusing, right? And so we'll just see how that works out. Just interesting how laws impact our conversations in this ethics course in IT. Now, body scanners in some stores, even in the United Kingdom, you can enter a booth and strip down to your undergarments, and frankly, it's going to scan your body and it's going to fit you with a perfect pair of blue jeans. How cool is that? I think that's pretty neat. But what are you giving up? What about when we go through security at TSA in U.S. airports? There's this debate about the Transportation Security Administration's screening procedures. And you can find this on the internet. And there's a growing, still minor, but a growing chorus of critics that assert that electronic imaging scans and enhanced pat-downs both represent an unconstitutional violation of the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, right? So a privacy rights advocacy group did tell an appellate judge that the use of full-body scanners as a first line of defense at airport security checks is an unreasonable search in violation of a passenger's civil rights. There's another organization called EPIC, Electronic Privacy Information Center. They want to actually stop TSA from using the scans that show the naked image of passengers' bodies as the primary means of screening, right? All of that's very interesting, again, as we apply IT ethics and the law. Okay, what about RFID tags? This is a technology, RFID. It's short for radio frequency identification. And RFID is a tiny little wireless transmitter. It's a tag. You can put it on a box and you can watch the box move around the world, and you'll scan it and you'll know what's in it. We see these scanners all the time in grocery stores. In fact, I think there's a picture on the next slide. So this we're replacing barcodes with RFID tags because we get more information and faster, right? So this RFID tags, this is a convenient way to track items in a store, to track costs for companies, but the technology is increasingly being used to track other things like security badges or even people. And so there's this problem developing, this potential for an erosion of privacy, right? So yes, checkout is quicker in companies. In fact, I look forward to a day at a grocery store when I have 100 items in my cart and every one of them has an RFID tag on it. And I don't even stop at the checkout. I just slide right through. An RFID scanner scans all my items in the cart. Bloop, 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 and bam, they already have my credit card on file. It gets charged and I just keep walking. I just got 30 minutes of my life back. I like that. But we have to weigh the concerns. There are implanted chips, right? So the microchip, about the size of a grain of rice, right? There's a company called Verichip Corporation. They created an RFID tag that's been proven for use in human beings. And it allows doctors to learn more about your medical conditions of, for example, an unconscious patient, right? Well, are there implications from an IT perspective, a security perspective, and privacy rights? Well, for example, bad guys, if you have a pacemaker in your heart, a bad guy can hack into your pacemaker, basically hack into your heart, right? That was in correspondence or released by the Department of Homeland Security about a year ago, about 2019, where the agency warned that computer hackers can easily gain access to implanted cardiac defibrillators made by a company called Medtronic. That's a pretty popular company, famous for world-class things like this. So an attacker with an adjacent, they have to be short-range access to an affected product, like the pacemaker in your heart. There are situations where the product's radio is turned on and can inject, replay, modify, and or intercept the data within the telemetry communication. So that's what DHS is saying. And so there's this ability to read and write memory values to affect the implanted cardiac devices. Therefore, an attacker can actually exploit this communication protocol to change the memory in the implanted device, right? It's just scary. It's something to consider. So cybersecurity across the board, IT cybersecurity, is on biometrics is poor, or biomedical devices, I should say, is poor. And it's something that we want to continue to work on. Now, Google Maps needs to know your location, so we happily give it to them. And so we have information being collected and sold to advertisers and data brokers. So OnStar does the same. It provides emergency security and navigation and diagnostic services to its subscribers. Great. After police get the victim's permission to track down a stolen vehicle, goes one story. OnStar provided the police with the current location. Then OnStar, the service center, issued a command to this SUV that electronically disabled the gas pedal. That's kind of cool. So we can track the location on OnStar-equipped vehicles and listen to conversations happening within them. Kind of interesting. Airplanes have long been known to have black boxes, and famously so, because so many accidents we would not have known what happened in the final minutes. But did you know that modern automobiles also come equipped now with a black box, many of them, and it's growing? A little microprocessor attached to the car's airbag. And what it's going to do is record the information about the speed of your car, the pressure on the brake pedal, and whether your seatbelts were connected, amongst other data, right? So they are going to know, right? Interesting. There are back to the medical world, right? Where medical records and medical privacy or health privacy is always a concern. It is the practice of maintaining the security and confidentiality of patient records. The United States passed back in 1996 HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or HIPAA. This was an attempt to increase privacy precautions within medical institutions. So, yes, electronic medical records do lower costs, they do improve quality, but they're also a way to rein in, well, I already mentioned costs. They're also a way to manage privacy at the same time. So, there's this health information technology for economics in clinical health. A high tech is how the group goes. And that's an act that requires doctors and hospitals to move from paper records to electronic records by 2015. Many of them that I know are still actually in process 5 years later. 5-6 years later. So, however, it can be more difficult to control how that information is disseminated using this high-tech act, right? And now to complicate this issue with the following definitions, right? As you consider technology, ethics, and the law, privacy refers to the right of the individual to keep his or her health information. But now we're talking also about confidentiality, which refers to the duty of anyone entrusted with health information to keep that information private. Digital video recorders like TiVo. I would offer that you could, if you like this topic, TiVo, Google King of Queens TiVo. It was a comedy show. They did a funny episode on TiVo. Cookies. A cookie is a file placed on your computer's hard drive by the web server, right? So you reach out to a website, its web server is going to put a cookie on your computer. And the file contains information, as you know, about your visits to that website, like the login names and the passwords, the product references, and their contents of your virtual shopping carts, etc. And what the website does is when you log onto a website, it creates a session with the website, and it can retrieve the information from the cookie, right, which is helpful. Most websites do not ask for permission before creating the cookie on your hard drive, but that is changing, right? You can actually configure your web browser to alert you when a cookie is being placed on your computer. And again, for your final papers, you may consider CCPA. As it became law this year in California, it will impact the whole nation. Many companies do business not just in California, but if it includes California, you have to follow this more stringent law. They've made a number of modifications to clarify how businesses should implement privacy requirements, including the use of cookies. So we mentioned the European Union has GDPR. They require businesses to prompt consumers to accept cookies and other tracking technologies before progressing on a website. Without a consumer's explicit consent, a business can't collect or share the data. CCPA's approach defines a sale, and it applies to the exchange for value of all consumer information, including the sharing of this sort of personal data. So both CCPA and GDPR address this. Here's a little bit about flash cookies, a file placed on your computer's hard drive by a web server again, but this time running the Adobe Flash Player. And it holds a lot more information. Otherwise, it's a very similar concept. Flash cookies are not controlled, however, by your browser's privacy controls. Be aware of that. You can set your browser's privacy controls. You think you've managed cookies. You have not managed flash cookies. So be aware of that. Okay, we're going to stop there, come back for one last part in data mining to wrap up this week's conversation.